Thank you guys for joining me. You Archaix veterans too, joining me on this baby Phoenix edition Q&A for beginners. Let's do that audio check. Doesn't take a lot of people, just a couple. Let me know the audio's doing good. Thank you, Freeman. Delta Dawn, awesome, that's good. Let's see, I'm gonna remove this from the stage. I'll remove that from studio. I got my Explorer's hat on, and I got, you guys know the mascot for the Mystery Machine when they're trying to figure out things, Scooby-Doo. So that's who's representing Baby Phoenix today. There's Baby Phoenix up on the shelf. You can see Baby Phoenix's little feet. But you know what? Maybe I should put Baby Phoenix over here. There we go. Baby Phoenix doesn't come out very often. We don't do a lot of things for beginners. Hey, Jahar Lee. Ryan, thank you, moderators. Thank you for making a really good atmosphere. Before we get crunk up, let me turn my phone off. Before we get crunk up, let's to get some announcements out the way. Let's see. Just gotta turn that volume down. All right. Do have a few announcements. I see Martin in the chat. Martin, we need to schedule another Illuminati. We got some requests on Archaix TV for you and I to do an Illuminati video again. And that was pretty funny. We need to do that, Martin. I've been so busy going in different directions. Let me find the bottom of my chat. Hi, Tiger Turtle. Oh, Errol G. I try not to do these call outs because they're so distracting. But I know so many of you. I've met you. I've met two names I just called out. I've met in California. Tiger Turtle, hell, she's everywhere. Texas. New Mexico. All right. So, we may have time to take questions from the chat. I don't know. But Delta Dawn, one of my moderators, Delta Dawn, really active in the Archaix community, took it upon herself to do a post on Facebook asking for all the Archaix beginners, hey man, what are your questions? She amassed a lot of questions and the identity of the person who asked the question. It's all been outlined here. So we're going to go through this fast, guys. We're going to go through it fast. There's no reason. There's no reason to tarry, and there's no reason to just stay on one particular topic for too long. We got a lot to cover. So let me get these little announcements out the way. For those of you who are on Archaix TV, if you haven't checked, you got a new Hats Off video dropped yesterday. I know y'all weren't expecting that. It's only 4 or 5 days after the last Hats Off video. But I'm on a roll with the Hats Off stuff lately. The cover image for the video is very compelling. That design was approved in 1935. It was the New Deal. And now you can understand when you see that star over the pyramid on the back of the $1 bill and you see everything it lines up to, you can do this yourself. It's very obvious what the New Deal was. FDR's New Deal was basically a takeover of the United States by these people. It's all there. Hats off. So, also, for those of you who like to join the homeopathic shows live and you want to participate in the Zoom call, Danny of Removing the Shackles and I believe Dr. Corey Stern, I'm not sure who all the participants are, but you can participate live in their Zoom call video, and it's posted on Archaix TV. But on Archaix TV, you can go to the post and you can see the link, and all members can join. So, also, you guys know that Chronicon 2023 is finally available to the public. I've been holding it back. I've been going through it, doing my own little minor editing and rearranging and things. I had to do some tweaks even after this massive project was done by Babette. She spearheaded it. She did all the typing, but a lot of chronological mathematical editing was done by Shiva Shampoo, and it's also by Don Koch. It's Don Koch or Koch, I can't remember, but he is a friend of mine too. I haven't been in contact with him for a while. but he's Archaix supporter, and I went through the tweaks and I released it yesterday morning. Book 1 in paperback still won't be available. It'll be published by Book Tree in San Diego, but it will not be available till the fall, because before before Book 1, Volume 1 of Chronicon gets published in a paperback, which is only the pre-flood world. It's going to be huge, though. It's 3,000 years of the pre-flood world till 2239 BC. The book alone is just going to be massive. And it just covers all history. We have all known, verifiable chronological records in history and date monikers going from 5239 BC to 2239 BC, which is the 3,000 years of Theopompus. So this is amazing. It's amazing data. It's an amazing amalgamation of material from all over the world, different time periods, different languages, different chronicons from, I'm not the first one to write a chronicon. I am just the most recent chronologist in our historical timeline to have put together. There is no one else in the world who's done it. A chronicon has not been attempted in centuries. There have been chronologists, but they focus on small areas of history. And Archbishop James Ussher was the last real chronologist who tried to provide a chronology of the all. We really don't have anybody like that. We've had some really abbreviated, kind of half-ass done jobs. No good. Nothing like Chronicon is out today. So it's amazing. But my book on giants, it's called Giants on Ancient Earth, is being reformatted and edited. It is a self-published book on Amazon. However, Book Tree is now reformatting and editing it, putting all the bibliography. It's huge bibliography. I read a lot of books to put that together. It's now being released on Book Tree. It should be available by February or March. That's my book on giants. And the next thing is Before the Flood. He might, because it's already edited, I don't know. He might be able to publish it super fast. It may be available in the summer. I don't know. But that's just volume 1 of Chronicon paperback. Will be available 2024. So, Baby Phoenix is out there. Listen, everybody has to start somewhere. Oh, I do have one more announcement. My new announcement is that I'm going to be spreading the Archaix demographic to Reddit. I've had a Reddit page before. It was monitored by somebody else, and it didn't really work out well. Wasn't prepared. Archaix was not at the level then that it is now. The type of material produced now, the charts I have, the presentations are a much higher caliber than when I started this channel. So I'm ready for Reddit now. I wasn't ready back then. And of course, because of my criminal history, I came under severe attack under Reddit. A lot of people on the Reddit platform they don't care about the data. They really don't care about what kind of information you're putting out. It's a real different mindset on Reddit than it is on other platforms. I ran into a wall of censorship and liberalism that was just real toxic. My first dealings with Reddit. And I realized that there's a lot of people, they're pretty much immersed in dungeon programming. They're really going to believe their Graham Hancock crap. They're going to believe their Billy Carson crap, their Ancient Aliens crap. They're going to believe all this unjustified, unverifiable material. They're going to defend it to the T, but not with facts, only with attacking my criminal history. And this is what happened on Reddit. And I finally deleted that page. But I'm coming back with a vengeance. I've already set up everything that needs to be set up, and this time I'm gonna take it to them, and I'm ready for that. I'm ready for all the contention that comes with that as well. So anyway, in this presentation here, you got to understand, guys, those of you new to my channel, there is nothing that you're going to ask in this venue that has not been asked before. Guaranteed. Comment sections are full of answers to all these videos. What is it, 470 something videos now? Or 570 something videos? Your question is not going to be novel. It's only novel to you. Now, there are many intelligent triers of fact who have been involved in my channel for a very long time. And what this means for you is that You may be new to the Archaix data. You may be triggered by some of the things you see because you hit this wall where everything that you've been taught in your life is completely different than what you're finding in Archaix. And yet you can't wrap your mind around the data and arguments presented in Archaix that show that your belief is absolute bullshit. You're not the first. Archaix is packed with intelligent people who have fact checked, people who have started their own websites dedicated to trying to prove me wrong over and over and over, going through the data, the chronological material, trying to see if I'm lying about source materials. You would not believe my material has been dissected by more people than you will ever know. And it continues to this day. They're looking for chinks in the armor. They're looking for all these things. But I have dedicated myself from the beginning to telling you the truth. What is buried, what is concealed in the historical record, and how it literally undermines every belief system that we maintain today. We live in a falsified version of reality. We live under a blanket of paradigms that is overlapping each other with such sophistication that it could only be artificially induced. The layering of false narratives is so prolific that in Archaix, it literally requires us to peel back one belief system at a time just to get to the real meats and bones of our reality, to really understand who we are, where we're going, where we came from. This is what we want in Archaix, the truth and nothing but the truth. But in order to find out what is real as opposed to what has been imagined, in order to excavate through layers of deceit to find these little Easter eggs of truth, we have to piss people off. We have to dissect and tear apart paradigms at such rapidity that many people are turned away and they leave. But many of those that are in the chat feed right now are among those who left and came back because they realized spirit guided them and they realized there's something going on over here at Archaix that you need to pay attention to. And they came back and they've been rewarded for it. I'm not talking to my Archaix veterans or even those who aren't a veteran status that have just been here a while. I'm talking to those very new to my channel that don't have a clue as to the depth of material that has been documented here in Archaix. Such a profound collection of data points and data sets, constructions that you can follow easily if you're just patient. They're going to lead you into understanding that the only thing really real here is you. Everything else is dressing. And in this dressing, little Easter eggs have been placed for your discovery that tell you deeper things about you and your reality. It is putting these threads together that literally untangles almost every paradigm promoted today. This is why I know, and I'm willing to debate it with anyone, that the whole ancient aliens narrative is a psyop. It's total BS. I understand we live in a construct. We don't live in a cosmos. A cosmos is what the construct wants us to think we're in, but we're not. We're in a contained field. This is something the U.S. military has learned as well. We're not in an actual universe. We're in the copy of a universe, an artificial copy that's been made to be perceived as real as possible because it needed to fool us, and it has fooled us through many life sims. Many times you have been here over and over and over and over and over. Your avatars have differed. The personality's always been the same. Your personality is the divine signature of who you are as an immortal. It cannot be replicated. The avatar is nothing but a husk. It is a shell that belongs to the construct, and you only borrow it for a temporary period of time. And as the construct grows old and ages, so do all its aspects. This is called entropy. Even the avatar you borrow begins to shut down. It needs to reboot, to be absorbed back into the construct. When you come back, you start as a little small. You're a baby phoenix, and you start and you grow up to an adult. So this is what I want you to know. You're not the only intelligent person here. So don't think that your questions are something that hasn't been already answered multiple times in chat feeds, in live videos, in published books, in my 200 plus articles. You just haven't come across the answer. But the answers to almost all of your questions are in the Archaix material. I understand it's a vast amount of material. I understand there are over 1,000 hours of content on the YouTube Archaix channel alone, not counting Archaix TV. And that's daunting because there's only 168 hours in a week, and yet you have to sleep as well. You have to work. You have obligations. I get that. But if you're not willing to do the work, I don't feel compelled to have to teach you. So this is where we're at. This is a symbiotic relationship. You are here to learn and grow. If you have any other intent other than that, things are not going to go well for you here. Many people have been escorted right out the door of Archaix in different ways. Some have been blocked, deleted, get the hell out of here with your smart ass. Some of them have had their whole belief systems torn apart with such scrutiny that they weren't able to recover, and they left. They didn't leave for the better, but they left. So about 99% of all new listeners ask questions that are already answered in multitudes of presentations, but that's okay. We're going to answer these questions on this paper. I didn't even look at this paper, so I don't even know what it is, but we're going to answer these questions. Also, many new listeners isolate something that they believe is contradictory, only to learn later that there was no contradiction at all. And things are easily explainable. I tell my listeners here in Archaix all the time, when you reduce things to their lowest common denominators, that means you are basically removing all the intangibles, all the tangents, all the extraneous data just to get to the core, whatever it is you're researching. When you focus on phenomena by removing everything to its lowest common denominators, that's how you find out the truth of a matter. It's the dressing and the attachments, the accretions by culture, by science, by religion, by opinion. It's the accretions that build the surface of a phenomenon and have you believe that it's something entirely different. So in Archaix, that's what we do. We apply Occam's razor. We apply common sense. We also reduce things to their lowest common denominators so we can get down to the nitty gritty, the nuts and bolts. We get to the ABCs of a matter. So a lot of problems new people have coming into Archaix is they try to marry. They bring that baggage of religion, of politics, sociology, science. They bring these preconceived notions that they have accepted to be true, and they bring it into Archaix. And when they find how compelling some of the Archaix data is, they try, instead of doing away with prior beliefs and conceptions, they try to marry those as if there is a bridge between deceit and truth, and it doesn't work. When you come into Archaix, I tell people all the time, leave your baggage at the door. When you leave, pick it up and go on about your business. But don't bring your preconceived notions and things that you have learned, things that you have accepted from other paradigms to be true. Come into Archaix and then think you're going to be able to bridge the misinformation with the accurate data. It never goes well for you. My Archaix veterans in the chat will tell you over and over what happens to people. They come unhinged. They are unable to process and move forward because they've trapped themselves in a box. Most of the belief systems that we maintain today in the collective are designed to keep you in a box. Here, we call that dungeon programming. So you've got to come into Archaix with an open mind, accept the data as it is. Once you do, once you see, and you can't see, there's no way around many of these concepts, you will understand that some of the things that you have been taught to be true are absolute falsehoods, and they literally just dissipate with scrutiny. But that's the problem. Most people have not been trained to think. Most people today have others think for them. Our schools, our medical facilities are not producing doctors anymore. They're producing puppets who do whatever the computer tells them to do. They don't really know how to cure anything. They just know how to follow procedure, which is given to them in the form of computer programs in hospitals now. Doctors really aren't shit today. This is the same thing at the collegiate academic levels for professorships. It is the exact same thing. Because everything is peer reviewed, and everybody who is in the peer review process must tote the party line, then whatever the uniformitarian establishment has promoted to be true must be admitted to be true before anybody can publish anything in academia today. It is the same thing in the scientific community. If you're not towing the party line, you can't be peer reviewed, you can't be published, and you can't even get a spot in any type of collective national or international media to promote your new idea if it even threatens the established paradigm. We are not taught to think anymore. We are taught to accept what others tell us is true. Not in Archaix. In Archaix, you're not just shown alternate versions or alternate ways of processing the same data, but you're taught how to think. Right here in Archaix, many people have had mind explosions. They have passed that threshold from being a drone to a highly individualized soul that can think and process information, that can think for itself and process information and move in intellectual spheres far beyond anybody in the collective is capable of doing. I perceive that I am one of those individuals. I have no problem discoursing about anything in the world. And it is because I have freed myself. It's called breaking free. It's one of my mantras: break free or die trying. It's something you've got to do every single day. There's never a point on your individual timeline where you're just going to break free. It's not going to happen, because every night when you go to sleep, you are jacked back in by virtue of the central nervous system into this deceptive medium, which completely tries to re-govern over the protocols that are basically defining your existence. Breaking free is something you do on a daily basis. And someone who is broken free and is in the habit of breaking free is no longer subject to the dungeon programming constructs that have educated the collective. Once you're free from collective education, your mind is free to process information at speeds that are I'm talking about subluminal. I'm talking about speeds of processing data far faster and with better clarity than anybody in the collective is able to do. They can't. Here in Archaix, you will have mind explosions. This is a promise. This is a promise not only that I make, but it is something that many people in the chat will tell you has already begun happening with them. Once you break free from the tendrils of deceit, the apparatus of deceit no longer has power over you. This is the value of Archaix. Break free or die trying. Learn how to think instead of having the collective programming do the thinking for you. This is why I know Graham Hancock, Billy Carson, Ancient Aliens, half of the people that speak on the Gaia Network are all absolute charlatans, full of shit. So, all right. And before I begin these Q&A, that was one of my rants. You're going to have to get used to that. Yeah, just don't bring that baggage in here. Everything here in Archaix is free. You get over 500 and something videos for free. There's no sense in you not taking advantage of it. The playlists are very, very organized. So, now, I will say this. A large part of the problem is because the community itself that has set itself up as a beacon of light to those few who consider themselves truthers, therein lies the problem. That's where the greatest trap is. Who cares about ancient aliens? Who cares about Atlantis 9600 BC or Zechariah Sitch and Billy Carson crap about kings living for 50,000 years and all this fantasy crap? Who cares about all that? There are millions of people who have fallen for all that BS. But out of these paradigms come people who consider themselves to be truthers. It is a term that I'm finding more and more as each day passes is developing a bad taste in my mouth, almost to the point where I want to disassociate with the so-called truther community because it is toxic and it is also filled with dungeon programming and individuals who claim to be truthers, and yet they're putting out material that still supports these false paradigms, this BS. Absolutely nothing to support many of the things that they say and teach, and it's toxic. So yeah, so there's another layer here. It's not just the collective programming. The truther community has been totally infiltrated, and that's another thing that here in Archaix, you'll hear me calling out a lot. So, having said all that, I'm done. I'm done with my little announcements and my little beginner's rant. Let me see what we're doing here in this chat. Oh, we already got over 1,000 people in the chat. That's good. Yeah, indigenous creature, gatekeepers is what I should have said. I'll drink to that. Somewhere in space and time, I'm really not sure what her coordinates are, or if her coordinates are ever going to, line up and cross mine. I don't know. But somewhere in space and time, there's a lady thinking about bringing me a mug of coffee. I don't know. We'll see. All right. Thank you, Delta Dawn, for these questions. So, I am not going to waste time. We've already been 30 minutes in. Let's get this Q&A done. I'm showing you guys the paperwork here. I'm not skipping a single question. They're front and back. Because I know this is a video that many beginners are going to be watching over and over, I'm going to leave the obiter dictum out. And I'm just going to stick to the questions and provide the answers, move to the next one. Oh, my God.
Coffee?
Yes.
Cup.
I don't have a mug in here. I got a glass of water. So, if Baby Phoenix is ready, I think we're all ready. We got no protest. So the very first question, Delta Dawn, in the future, please don't provide a book. This is not a question. This is a huge paragraph. When somebody provides me a long paragraph, when they're asking a question, I've called this out on Archaix several times in the comment sections. It's ordinarily somebody trying to mold my answer by educating me about what's true and what's not before I'm able to answer their question. Yeah, that's highly deceitful. I'm not on board with that. A lot of people find that their questions aren't answered in the comment sections. It's often because they tried to introduce something that they accepted as true first before I was allowed to answer their question. And that right there is why you even asked me. If you just want me to agree with you, why you even ask me? Oh, yeah. You know I'm country as hell. Got a mug with 4 tractor tires. Look at that. Look at that mug. So, first question. Storm designers. Oh, it's a small question, then a huge question. All right. Storm designers asked, what is the origin of old Serbian Orthodox Slavic calendar? This is the year 7,532, and they say Noah's flood was in the year 5509 BC. Any parallels with other calendars of history? I absolutely answered this question in one of my latest live videos concerning calendars, concerning the division between the Eastern Orthodox Church, where that calendar came from, and the Western Roman Imperial Church, the Pope, the papacy. So all these calendars from Soviet Georgia, the Russian calendar, Serbian calendar, the Armenian calendar, every single one of those dating systems came from a religious text. It did not come from civil records that those countries were preserving. It came from a religious text. That religious text was completely different than the one that Rome had a copy of. And I showed that somebody had introduced falsified chronological material by adding 1,000 years to several different items in that chronology. This is where the confusion, this is why those calendars none of those dating systems and calendars actually go before the year 300 AD. And it's because all of these chronological errors were introduced within 3 centuries after the Christian era began. Prior and during the early Christian centuries and prior to the Christian centuries, there is not a hint of one of these ancient calendrical systems that go back that far. None. You need to watch that video. It's a very recent video. Somebody, listen, guys, I've got so many video presentations. It's once I release a video, it's out of my mind. I'm already moving on to other things. I can't even remember the title of that video where I showed that book, and I showed all the clips from that book showing the difference between the Hebrew chronology, the Samaritan chronology, and the can't even remember the other one. And that's the one the Serbian calendar came from. But yeah, I just did that video. That's where your answer is. Your answer is that none of these nations, like Serbia, Armenia, the Slavic calendar, none of these nations that promote that dating can show any historical records or any ancient authors that even knew about this calendrical system prior to the Christian era. It is 100% a Christian invention based off older, misunderstood chronological records. So there's your answer. And it happened when the Byzantine Empire split away. Constantinople split away from Rome. During the schism, those who had those who had one model of chronology basically splintered off into all of Europe and Asia. And then the Roman Imperial was the Pope, basically the Pope version, stuck with the Hebrew. So this is yeah, it's all in that video. Very recent video. Terry Scott asked, question. This is a long question. Jason, I have a question and a comment. Perhaps you can answer it, but it seems to me that in this simulation, this world that we know of, there has basically been nothing but for 6,000 years, including our time of the 2040 and 2046, 2106, 2178, Armageddon. Man, this is not a really good constructed question. You've already lost me. 21. Armageddon, war, fighting, famine, destruction, death, starvation between kings and queens and rulers, and reasons we may never really know among men. I'm not talking about the 138-year Phoenix cycle or the 792 years of the. This sounds like a whole bunch of questions here. I really don't. This right here is not sufficient. Which brings me to my question. Do you know? I'm adding words because this wasn't. Do you know or have anything about matriarchal society? Was it at peace? Is this when we had great technology? And if so, for how long? Is there anything in the historical records, or for that matter, any writings from authors that you may have come across that give us insight of that time period? Any reasons why that matriarchal society? Hey, in the future, Delta Dawn, when you do, if there's multiple questions or premises, I need those separated. This is this is long. I'm not done. Why the matriarchal society fell? Was it at peace, or was there also war and fighting, etc.? Was this society destroyed due to the Anuna or the Agigi, and to them, for whatever reason, didn't work? I know that is a lot to unpack. Okay, Robert Graves has a book called The White Goddess. He also has a book called The Greek Myths. Also, he's not the only one. There are many people that have addressed the fall of the matriarchy and the fall of goddess worship. A lot of it has to do with the changing of a biosphere. And I have on my channel spread throughout many different videos. I talk about this takeover of the patriarchy when the sun calendars were developed, when the vapor canopy fell. Now, some of this has to do with the fact that during the vapor canopy, the pre-flood world, that nighttime, the mesosphere magnified the heavens. The stars, the ancients claimed the stars were singing to them. Also, that they could reach out and almost touch the stars, and that the moon filled the sky. We don't have that today. Why? Because the mesosphere has been emptied. Is there still a mesosphere up there? Of course. Scientists tell us it's just a bunch of tiny suspended water droplets in a real thick layer of atmosphere. But at one time, the mesosphere was an ocean. And as an ocean, it literally worked as a lens and it magnified the stars. However, when the sun passed over the sky, wherever the sun was located, that area of the mesosphere basically defragged. It became a fog that descended to the ground in the morning and in the evening. And this is what we find in Genesis. In the evening and the morning, there was a mist that covered the ground. It watered all the plants. It filled up the pools of water in the brooks. At nighttime, the moon ruled the sky, and this is basically the world that we had until the vapor canopy collapsed. The sun couldn't be seen during the day because it literally fogged up the whole sky. Sun wasn't seen. It was it was called the time of the dark purple light, according to the Hopi. That's Frank Waters' Book of the Hopi talks about that. Now, we have this during this time, the goddess was venerated. Her symbol was the lunar orb, and this is what we have with the vapor canopy world. And to them, they didn't understand the mechanics. All they knew is that sometimes the moon at night filled the sky. Sometimes it appeared as two horns, and it filled the sky. But they didn't understand. Today we understand, at least we're told, because the construct wants us to believe we're in a solar system. So science has basically told us that the horns created by the moon is just the sunlight reflecting off the surface of the lunar orb. This is what we're told. Do I believe that? No, I believe the moon is holographic. However, it makes sense, and it's because the construct wants people to think that the scientific world didn't just make all this stuff up. Over centuries of time observing the sky, they were led to the conclusion that we live in a solar system. Do I believe we live in a solar system? No, I believe it's the conclusion that the construct wanted us to make. The more and more intelligent we become, the more and more we scrutinize our environment. The more we scrutinize our environment, the more the holography puts those clues into the sky to basically cause us to make certain suppositions. So this is the world we live in. It is reactive. It is reactive to the collective consciousness, and it does alter and it changes its holography to comport with new belief systems. The goddess fell when the vapor canopy fell. She lost her power. As soon as the night sky was seen after the collapse of the vapor canopy, which is known as the day the sky fell, which is also known as the Great Flood of Noah, which is also known as the birth of the sun in the ancient American calendars, and the birth of Utu Shamash in the Sumerian records, and the birth of Horus in the Egyptian pantheon, after the Aeneid was already established. So we have this fact that after the cataclysm, people looked up at the sky, and now the moon is tiny. The moon is tiny and far away. How was that translated? If that was the main object venerated in the sky that supported the power of the matriarchy and the goddess, then after the flood, it looked like she had weakened in power, and the stars had receded with the moon. And now during the day, it wasn't a dark purple light. Now during the day, it was a fiery burning disc. And people had to hide from it at first because it would get burned. It took a while to acclimate to it. The patriarchy the patriarchy took over in the few centuries just after that event. But we see echoes of the continuance of goddess worship through all civilizations, and even the legacy of the goddess passed from culture to culture, finally making its way to ancient Achaia and Boeotia and Ionia, and they set up their oracles, and then the oracles became shrines of the goddess, the last ones left, as the rest of the world was taken over by the patriarchy. So yeah, it's there's not a lot of historical material to go through. There are many books about the matriarchy. There's many books about goddess worship, but there isn't a lot of data to glean other than the actual relics and artifacts and archaeology that we have found that goddess worship was very prevalent and it was connected to the moon. So there's not. I would suggest you read The White Goddess by Robert Graves. It's a huge book, and then after that, there's even more information in his book called The Greek Myths, which is a massive book. So Peter Heidi Locke. I would love to know if Jason is prepping for 2040, or does being an errant exclude this type of action? First of all, there is a company called Reaper. I'm not prepping for 2040, but am I a prepper? Somewhat. I'm somewhat a prepper. I can't be hypocritical at all. I'm not prepping for 2040 because I don't care. It's 16.5 years away. I have a message to get out long before that date even comes to pass. I'm also aware that things are going to be basically okay until about 2 years before that event. So this is all outlined in Chronicon. But just like the last 16 years has been tumultuous, and yeah, we as a collective family have gone through many things, and in some regions of the world it was harrowing, it was terrible, but the rest of us continued on. World War II resulted in the extermination of millions of people, and yet the neighborhoods of America were paradises during the 1940s. Everybody was getting along, economy was great, all kinds. You would not be able to tell from the civilization in North America that the rest of the world was falling apart. And in other pockets of the world, even in Europe, there were areas in the center of the theater of war in World War II. There were still cities in Europe that were absolutely unfazed. They had their tea in the morning, they had their coffee in the afternoon, they had their feast in the evening, and life continued unabated. Yeah, we have to get out of this mindset that a phenomenon has to be real for everybody for it to have happened. Let me give you an example. I have taken some slack, not a lot because my prediction ratio is very high, but I've taken some slack from basically trolls and haters about the Carrington event prediction, which I said from the beginning only comes from 2 data sets. It just comes from 2 data sets in history. And if either one of them are untrue, then maybe nothing's going to happen. But even though it didn't come from a prolific amount of data like my other predictions have, still, Australia, the UK, different countries in Europe, part of Russia, even part of the United States, Mexico, all over Canada, all over the world. But at different times this year, there have been internet blackouts for days, sometimes weeks, power outages, even more than usual from any other year. So was it a fulfilled prediction? Not if you want, not if it's going to be the entire world collapsing. No. Was it a failed prediction? That depends on what you think the orders of magnitude should be. I don't know. I'm not saying that was a successful prediction. I'm not telling you that it didn't happen all over the world in different areas either. I'll let you decide that. But what I'm saying is we have to accept things by their orders of magnitude. Just because something wasn't experienced by you doesn't mean that 2,300 miles away, 4.5 million people weren't experiencing it right then and there. So I don't know. It's a good. I don't know why I went on that tangent, but concerning this prepping deal, I would love to know if Jason is prepping for 2040. No, I'm not. I have no idea where I'll be in 16.5 years. I have no idea. But am I a prepper? To a limited degree. This is YouTube, so I can't show some of these little toys and weapons I have. But I do have a collection of camping gear, really highly sophisticated gear that folds out. I got collapsible fishing poles and all kinds of fishing kits, and I got all my lures. I got high tension, high pound tension weight wire. I've got Reaper weapons, and for those of you who don't know, Reaper is a modern day company using modern day Teflon and blue steel deals, but they're manufacturing ancient weapons. I have swords, long swords, short swords, spears, battle axes, tomahawks. I have all these weapons that are made with modern stuff. Yeah, if a zombie apocalypse happens, am I ready? Absolutely. I've got all my oils and my lanterns. I got contrary to popular belief, if uh, if something was really to go down and collapse of an infrastructure like here in Texas, people, all these people want these loud shotguns and all these weapons. All that's good if you're in a community with a bunch of other people that have them. But if you're a loner out there in the woods, the worst thing you want to do is draw attention to yourself that there's a rifle nearby. But there's a way to live off the land. I have pneumatic weapons. I have a 50 caliber pneumatic weapon. It will punch a hole through a car door. It's pneumatic, but it's a 50 caliber. Pneumatic means it only takes an air compressor. It shoots air. It doesn't use gunpowder. I also have 22s that are pretty powerful, but they're pneumatic weapons. And the difference is in a situation where you're trying to survive, you're not trying to draw attention to you. So if you're going to hunt, you would need to do so with pneumatic weapons. You don't want to do it with a 30-06. That tells everybody in a 4 or 5 mile radius where you are and that you're in the area. But if you're hunting with pneumatic weapons, or I have a very unique over under crossbow, and it shoots a pneumatic 38 under the barrel on the bottom, but the top is just an 80-pound crossbow. That's nothing compared to my crossbow that's 425-pound tension with a laser sight and a scope. And there's no one in the world that can pull that crossbow back. It comes with a huge wheel winch that you got to sit there and crank it just to pull it back to put the bolt in. But it's a one shot, but it's gonna do the job whatever it hits. So it's no, I'm not a prepper, but I do have my toys. I do have my compensations. I have a lot of survival gear. I have all kinds of non-GMO seed packs. I got all kinds of stuff. Will I ever need it? I don't know. Well, was I inspired to purchase all that stuff over a long period of time? Yes, I was. Will somebody else end up getting it and they need it? Well, so be it. That spirit guided that. Whatever happens, happens. But no, I'm not prepared. I'm not preparing for 2040. I'll be 67 in 2040. So, Ronaldo Brazar. The numerical significance of the number 2178, please. I got 2 videos on it. 2178 is the uncollapsible number. It's very simple. I've showed in presentations, and this has been supported by a mathematician on YouTube from India who tried to disprove it and ended up by the end of the video showing live on his computer that I was absolutely correct. 2178 is the immortal number. The existence of this number and its properties and what it does when you subtract its reflection back upon itself, and it creates this magnificent loop that shows it will never collapse. All numbers in existence collapse except 2178 and its multiples. So this literally shows us that our reality is governed by a mathematical construct that is almost non-existent. And it shows about 0.05% of reality is real, and the rest of it collapses into nothing upon scrutiny. This is the value of that number. And many people have replicated that experiment and have all gotten back to me and said, man, it's amazing. It's just more evidence to me that we're living in a construct. Simple as that. Well, I'll also say that I made the discovery about its non-collapse property, 2178. I made that discovery before I ever even realized that 2178 is 138 years after 2040. That blew my mind. To me, that is absolute proof that this construct collapses in the year 2178, which is 72 years after the return of the chief cornerstone in 2106, which is the 6,000th year of the Annus Mundi timeline. It's not the 6,000th year since the sim began. It's just the 6,000th year of a very definitive timeline that was known to most of the ancient world. Deborah Schmidt. Every time I listen to Jason, I have the same question. What is the reason why we have been hidden all this information about the Phoenix, about the resets, about the identities of the controllers? Why? Uh, I know hiding information is a form of control, but is there more to it? Well, let me give you this example. I can only answer that by giving you examples from the historical records, such as only one race of people before the flood knew that the flood was coming. And the flood was caused by the Phoenix phenomenon. It's 2239 BC. It's on the 138-year Phoenix periodicity. Only one race of people knew it was coming, and they vanished. This is one thing Zecharia Sitchin got right. Before the flood, the Anuna disappeared. And it created a shock and awe period. And the people wanted to know, hey man, where did the gods go? How come they went? And these giant pictures and monuments were set up all over the world to try to induce them to come back. But they wouldn't come back because they knew what was coming. They hid. Now, the ancient aliens narrative would have you think that they went in ships and went. It's none of that. There are no spaceships. There is none of that anywhere in the Sumerian writings. What we have is a vanishing into the underworld. This is also a Phrygian tradition that King Archaix wanted to protect his people. Knowing of a coming disaster, he built underground cities in Turkey and vanished from the surface. And that's how he survived. How do we know that he and his people survived? Because we have that tradition. If they didn't survive that, we wouldn't have had that piece of history. So the best way to answer your question, the best way to answer this question here is that the Anuna knew, and they used it to their advantage. After the flood, we have in the book of Jasher, 552 years after the flood, in the year 1687 BC, in the month of May, just a couple of weeks after the daughter of Jacob named Dinah is kidnapped by the Canaanites of the city of Shechem. The other Israelite sons get together with their retainers and their soldiers and servants, and they build a small little army, and they go attack Shechem, and they go get Dinah. They go rescue Dinah. But this caused a problem. 7 Canaanite kings got offended and brought their armies, and they were going to punish Jacob and his sons. So when this happened, the sun darkened. Now, the story tells us that Jacob looked into the sky and prayed unto the God and asked for deliverance at that moment. And suddenly rocks fell from the sky. A great earthquake terrified the Canaanite armies. The sky darkened. The sun turned black. And you would think it's a normal eclipse, but it's not. It's on the 138-year timeline of the Phoenix. This doesn't tell me that something supernatural happened because the Israelites needed it to happen. This tells me that the people that we call the Israelites were in possession of astronomical information they used to their advantage against their enemy. How do I know this? Because it's by extrapolation of what happened later. In the year 1473 BC, someone of Israelite pedigree living in Achaia, Argos, has a brother, and he is contending with his brother for the throne. His brother is military. He's an astronomer. He predicted on a certain day that the sun was going to darken, but everybody would be okay. And it wasn't an eclipse by the moon. And when that event occurred, the people made him king of Argos instead of his brother. He used astronomical information to his advantage. 1135 BC, the Tuatha De Danann. Actually, this was the Irish name for these people, people of the goddess Danu. Now, earlier there, the Danann, they sailed right through the pages of Homer's Odyssey. They came from the Palestine area by way of Egypt. These were the ancient tribe of Dan in the Old Testament. The Danu, the same as the Greek Danos, the Danu arrived to the shores of Ireland, and they tried to invade, but they were repelled by the Furbolgs, who were a gigantic people. People were very tall in stature, and they occupied ancient Ireland. So the Tuatha De Danann left, and they returned returned in their fleets and landed to fight in the second battle of Moitura. In the second, it's called the Field of Towers. In the second battle of Moitura, they waited until the sun darkened. There was an earthquake and all kinds of things happened, and then they attacked the Furbolgs. And the Furbolgs were terrified because they thought it was the priests of the Danon who had caused that event to happen. Here it is again. A foreknown event was going to happen, known to a certain people who possessed that knowledge, and they weaponized it. They used it to their advantage. That's right. Thales of Miletus in the year 583 BC predicted the darkening of the sun in 585 BC to occur in 2 years, and it did happen in 583 BC. It just so happened to happen right as the armies of the Medes and the Lydians met on the field of battle, and King Nebuchadnezzar was standing right there to observe. And instead, the sun darkened. Both armies looked up and they thought it was a bad omen because the moon wasn't in the sky. And it was a terrible omen, and they realized this is not a day for us to fight. So the Medes and the Lydians concluded that they should be at peace. And after 5 years of continual warfare, right there on the battlefield, they sued for peace. And there is a monument that is still standing today in Turkey at Yassilikaya that has a relief that shows the king of the Medes and the king of the Lydians forming a peace treaty with King Nebuchadnezzar in the background, and they're both holding a black sun. This is what happened. This was the Phoenix phenomenon. Again, we have evidence, and these aren't the only ones. These are the ones I just remember off the top of my head. But we have evidence that the Phoenix phenomenon has been weaponized. It has been specifically kept from the public over and over and over, so that those who are retainers of this information are able to move when they need to move, unleash their technologies, hide in the underworld, do whatever they need to do. This is exactly what's been going. This is what's been playing out for a very long period of time. Now, if you think that the elite don't know about the Phoenix, then you got some videos to watch. Because I've got more than enough information on that to show that they've been knowing about it for a long. They've been hiding this information out in the open, in architecture, in literature, in movies, in alchemical treatises, illustrations, all that. So, Lisa Crowley, I would be interested in knowing his thoughts on the book of Archaix and whether the information in that material outlines anything to do with the truth of the construct or oversoul. I haven't looked at the material lately, but when I read it in the past, I was certainly curious. I don't really have much of an opinion. I don't want to demonize something that I haven't thoroughly examined. I read about 100 pages of Archaix when I was in prison, and I couldn't get past that. Nothing resonated with me. The whole time I'm reading it, it's like somebody made all this stuff up and did a really good job doing it. But other than that, I can't even speak on it because I haven't read the whole thing. Okay, Lainey Richardson. Hello, new to the page. Hi, Jason. I'd like your thoughts on chakras and sacred geometry in our individual fields. I have looked on your YouTube channel for videos with this content. Loved what I found. I have studied energy healing and have felt the unseen potential energies around us. Tesla said, think in terms of frequency and waves, or something similar. I just wonder where you would hold its importance in simulation. Okay, I don't know anything about chakras. I have never really got into that type of research. I've never really resonated with it. But when it comes to the individual informed field, I've gone into detail ad infinitum on my channel that I don't want to waste a lot of time here. That I had so many presentations on the informed field, on how we create our reality, how easy it is to tap into the overfield, the builder protocols that exist all around us, and how the construct itself is like at a feverish pace. It wants to introduce something new into the construct. And that's what it really focuses its energy and power on when somebody is introducing something new. It lends them power. It actually builds these things for them. The informed field is the soul. You're an immortal being and you're only borrowing an avatar. The avatar belongs to the construct itself. It's how you move in the construct. It's how you interface with the construct. So what you actually force your avatar to do, to move in the direction of something that you want, the construct yields. It obeys itself. Construct's not listening to you. It's watching this avatar. If this avatar, which belongs to the construct, starts moving in a certain direction, then the construct itself starts laying out more reality tunnels in the field of which you're trying to build. It reciprocates. It's like a divine mirror. Everything is done by virtue of imagination, but imagination doesn't really lead you anywhere. All the fantasies and daydreams in the world will get you nowhere. People fantasize every single night when they lay their head on a pillow. Those fantasies don't come true. There's no impetus. The avatar is laying down, doing nothing. So when you want to build something real, the physical body must move in the direction of what is imagined in order for the construct builder protocols to reflect that back as circumstances that end up being situations that you were imagining. It's a very easy concept. And I go into this on so many videos. For those new to my channel, the Immortals playlist is okay. It's okay. It's the fundamentals, which new beginners need to get to. But the real good meat and potatoes, the advanced material on the informed field and how to create our reality, you're going to find that in the podcast playlist. Because this is what podcasters always ask me, and I just take off. I'm led by inspiration. The podcasts and the live videos where I'm entertaining this, not all live videos. Some of those are just research. Those are historical presentations. But the live videos where I talk about the soul or immortality and how to interface with the construct, and especially the podcasts, that's where you're going to find the answers to your information. Yeah, but sacred geometry to me is nothing but just an outer manifestation of the construct itself. The construct acts like a Mandelbrot set, and the all is always present in its parts. All right, got to move on. Okay. This just says top contributor. Oh, Jennifer Ciprari. 2 questions. Are the people who will escape the feedback loop the ones who understand the simulacrum and the timeline of the Phoenix phenomenon? Everyone else loops back for another timeline until they figure it out? Question. I'm going to answer that first. No. Knowing about the Phoenix phenomenon, knowing that you're in a construct has absolutely nothing to do with the transmigration of the human soul. Nothing. This is like asking me to agree to being a religion or a cult. It's like asking me. It's like asking me to be a gatekeeper and inform you, and by virtue of everybody listening, inform all these people that you're not going to be able to escape the construct unless you buy into the Archaix model. I don't need that. I don't need that type of attention, and nor do I agree with it. There are people living in Southeast Asia. There are people in Madagascar. There are people way out in remote areas of the Amazon basin right now who just might escape the construct. There are members of different communities everywhere who do not fit in. They understand that their place in this reality is somewhere else. It's not here. They have awakened to the fact that reality is unreal. It has the properties of a construct and not a true cosmos. They have awakened, and they have a personal relationship with the oversoul that has allowed them to endure whatever their present circumstances are because they have faith that a better thing is coming. These individuals are not going to be a part of the next reboot. When the system reboots, it's going to shed problems. You understand, this is all about, the construct's all about self-preservation. It's going to shed away problems. Problems are those that require too much energy. When an individual soul is going its own way from the collective, is thinking its own designs, is creating its own reality tunnels, this requires more processing power than those who are subject to dungeon programming, those who have fallen for the ultra conservative Christian mindset or the Muslim paradigm or the Shinto paradigm, whatever belief system it is. That's what belief systems are. They are aspects of dungeon programming. They keep people in collective mindsets because that uses a lot less processing power and a lot less energy because the builder protocols have already created that construct. Now all it does is corral human souls into that area, and their avatars follow suit, and they stay in those areas, and they still do the same thing every day. The individuals who do the same single thing every day, every week, every month, every year, these are the individuals the construct really likes because it doesn't take a lot of processing power to create for them a new world because they're not creating a new world. They have fallen for dungeon programming. They are in stasis. Those the construct wants to shed during its resets, during its reboot period, those are the ones who are breaking pattern, because breaking pattern creates a new world. It literally splinters off new timelines that you can enjoy. And that requires a lot of energy and a lot of processing power. And the more that's happening, the more it's going to label those individuals as, I call us errants. It may have a different name for it in the construct. It may just talk expendables. But to me, you are an errant if you go your own way. As a highly individualized soul, you do not accept the perimeters of your existence as the all, but realize that you're able to move in what direction you want to move, experience what you want to experience. You have the freedom of the spirit to build a whole new world for yourself. And even for others, you can do it. But that makes you a problem. So on the next reboot, you would be basically filtered out. We call that from inside the construct the Exodus event. So that's your first question. I'm gonna have to censure the way you ask that question because it really sounds like for me to have agreed to that question that you could have easily just called us a cult or a whole new religion. So I'm going to say no. Your second question. Are there any other researchers, writers out there currently who share the same information that JB does? Is there any collaboration between them that would be interesting? I don't know if there are those who share the same information. I will say this. In the past 4 years, there have been a lot of television programs, Netflix specials, different movies and stuff that are really, really going in this direction. Additionally, Archaix has definitely affected the field and the community, meaning there are many, many people who have never even uttered simulation theory now talking about it openly. Not only that, but there are many channels that are threatened about simulation theory and its implications because it undermines their life work, their research, the things that they have accepted to be true. So now they're putting out videos basically critiquing or condemning simulation theory. Pay attention to what's going on in the field across YouTube. You can see how this information has basically dynamic consequences. You can see how people are either accepting it, understanding and embracing, or how it undermines and threatens their everything they've believed to be true. And I'm cool with that. I really don't care what somebody believes, because I tell my listeners all the time, you can remove simulation theory from the equation. It does not affect the Archaix data. Simulation theory, that we live in a construct, is a core conclusion based off a myriad of data sets that I cannot ignore. But I don't require that you believe that we're in a simulation for you to accept all these data sets. That's entirely up to you. It doesn't change anything about Nemesis X object, the dark satellite, any chronological issues. It doesn't change anything about the unfolding of history in precise mathematical patterns. It doesn't affect anything about the Phoenix phenomenon, eschatology, my interpretation of reality, none of it. Simulation theory is a core conclusion of mine because nothing else makes sense. But it doesn't need to be your conclusion. You can take the Archaix data as far as you want, but you're going to come across a threshold when, once you have fully grasped and understand the implications of this all too perfect mathematical construct that we call history, once you see it all laid out and you process this information, you're going to be standing at a threshold. What you do while you're standing there has everything to do with where you're going. So that's all I'm going to leave on the table right now. You can believe anything that you want to believe. It's not even my place to modify that. See, remember, the construct always honors your decisions. Always honors your decisions. All right. This is the name. Dilip Anthony Pinto. How can astrology be viable if this reality is a construct? How can astrology not be viable if we're in a construct? Astrology has already proven over and over and over to be true. And this is what this right here is what people don't understand about some of my presentations where I show the zodiac is not old. Those presentations are not an attack on astrology. And I've triggered a lot of people. A lot of people who make their profession in astrology and all that have got really triggered about. Listen, astrology is ancient. Star labs, star tables go back to ancient Sumerian, Babylonian times, and we have those. What we don't have is the zodiac. That is very new. And in my presentations, I have laid out my case and provided free PDFs with nothing but data sets showing all the ancient civilizations who admit that the zodiac was basically very new, a very recent introduction into their own civilizations by the Greeks. Egypt, India, Rome, all of them said it came from the Greeks. So, yes, I'm not attacking astrology. Because all astrology is the exact pinpoints of luminaries where they are located when a phenomena occurs. Therefore, we're not dealing with anything other than pattern recognition. I'm all on board with pattern recognition. That's what Chronocon's all about. Showing all these patterns in history and how they unfold multiple times, like cookie cutter history stamped on civilizations. You just change the names, the dates, the cities, and their locations, and it's the same thing over and over and over. So, no, Archaix does not attack the credibility or the viability of astrology, because astrology is nothing but the human attempt at pattern recognition, at declaring what is at certain times when those luminaries are at certain coordinates. That's its lowest common denominator. I don't care about all the individual particulars, what all the different individual stars and booties are actually translate to, what they mean and what that means if the moon is directly over this star or eclipsing this star. I don't care about any of that. All I care about is you to know that the zodiac is an artificial construct imposed by our controllers in order to promote many things. And it's used today and by many modern authors to date ridiculously ancient theories. Ridiculous theories. They use the zodiac. They're using archaeoastronomy. So they use something that has been introduced into the field only lately to date things that go back 6, 7, 8,000 years. And yet claim that those are actually 10,000, 11,000, 12,000, 13,000 years ago. They're using a new artificial construct to date something that didn't exist when whatever it is they're dating did exist. It's ludicrous. This is why I've brought these things to the table. Please do not think I'm attacking astrology. I have literally passed out over 1,000 PDFs of an 1893 book about astrology and how it nailed me to the T. I was very impressed. How it nailed me as a Gemini born June 9th. It nailed me to the T. I have promoted that. And I have continued to give out that PDF to people. But no, it's the zodiac. So, Richard Gomez Arruda. Richard Gomez Arruda. Sorry about that. Okay, the chronology of Nemesis X object needs some clarification for me. Okay, 522 AD plus 792 is 1314 AD. That's right, the great black darkness that appeared over Europe in 1314. You're absolutely correct. Okay, 1314 plus 792 is 2106, not 2046. I already see where your problem is. I can tell you're new to my channel or you're new to the Nemesis X data. 792 years is the periodicity of the Nemesis X object. However, you forgot to include the 60-year perihelion. You're including the whole aphelion and perihelion. You can't do that with Nemesis X because all throughout the historical record, the Nemesis X object is in the sky and close to us for a 60-year period. This is where the ancient Chinese, Sumerians, and Egyptians got their 60-year calendar from. The sexagesimal system derived straight from the appearances of the Nemesis X object. This is where we get references in the Babylonian records that the gods only had a 60-year window of activity. And then for 732 years, they're gone. They are nowhere in the world. 732 years later, there's a 60-year window. And then it's gone. 732 years of the absence of the gods, and then the 60-year window when the gods are here is 792 years. The chronology was published by me in 2011 in Anunnaki Homeworld. It has been published in Chronicon, but it's not published, but it's been in Chronicon since 2007 or 2008. It's unbroken. It starts in 3499 BC. The arrival of the first group of Anunnaki, which never entered Sumer, never entered the Near East, none of that. 60 years later, as the Nemesis X object was vanishing, going into aphelion for 732 years, Enki appeared with 50 Anuna. They appeared in ancient Sumer by way of Dilmun. This is the story that we have gotten. Then it's 732 years before it appears again. Then it's here for 60 years. Sumerian king list appears. Said the 7 Anunnaki of the Sumerian king list. And then it's gone for 732 years. Over and over. Now, you did mention key dates. 1314. But 732 years after 1314 is the year 2046. And then 2046 is 60 years away from 2106, the Battle of Armageddon, the return of the chief cornerstone, the 6,000th year. So the answer to your question was already in your question. You just didn't understand the difference. It's 792 year periodicity. However, that periodicity is broken up between aphelion, when the Nemesis X object is far away and removed from us, disappeared into the sky, it's vanished. And then for 60 years, it hangs in the sky until it's gone. So that's the Nemesis X object. So starting in 2046, there will be something in our sky that just stays here for 60 years. And it is the reason why the Great Tribulation period of judgment is a 60-year period until the return of the chief cornerstone. He comes to set the captives free on the exact year that I've shown in multiple presentations. 2106 AD is the year that is stamped in our chronology, in our simulated holography, as the year of Exodus. So, hope that answered your question, my brother. But I have videos in the Anuna files that go into a lot of detail about all the times the Nemesis X object has been here. Aiden Kruger. In 2024, is 2024 significant and dramatic change as far as cataclysms go in our realm? No, absolutely not. What we're going to have in 2024, when you say cataclysm, you're talking about something that's going to be hemispheric, vastly regional, or the entire world. So no. 2024 is going to be something else. 2024 is the breaking of the second seal. And what the breaking of the second seal is basically, to be very, very specific, all over Western nations, the Middle East and Europe and the United States, UK and Canada, all these nations are going to be suffering Muslim retaliation for United States involvement and protection of Israel. It's very simple. It's very simple. Retaliatory terroristic acts will be going on, small arms fires, attacks against infrastructure. It's going to be 1,000 little attacks in France and Germany, all throughout the UK, all throughout Canada, the United States. It's going to be a whole bunch of stuff going on all throughout there. This is all pre-planned. It's all funded by George Soros. Every bit of this, it's so out there, it's almost laughable. It's almost laughable how they just don't even care about hiding it anymore. It's all encoded in the Olympic ceremonies. Every bit of it's there for all of us to see. The Greek decoding of the second seal is a whole bunch of small arms fire. And I've shown my own listeners over and over, you cannot go by the intentionally deceitful Judeo-Christian interpretations of the Greek revelation text. You must use Greek lexicons, you must use Greek translations, and you must apply Greek mythology and history to the unfolding of events in the seven seals, because every single one of the letters of Paul were addressed to the lost sheep of the house of Israel that were located only in Greek cities. He named every single one of them. The Judeo-Christian eschatology is deceitful, and it gets you to believing a whole bunch of false narratives and false trails. The decoding of the first seal is absolutely genius. You got to see my video on that, how using the Greek actually unfolds all this material. And the elite are operating on the Greek Olympiad calendar. Every presidential election in the United States is on the Greek Olympiad calendar every 4 years, synced perfectly with it every 4 years, just like the Olympics. Every bit of this. This is why the Olympic ceremonies are vast rituals, basically painting magically exactly what the elite are introducing into the construct. Yeah, guys, this is all on my channel. But 2024 is not going to be cataclysm. 2024 is going to be confusion, because that's what the second horseman is about. That's what the second horseman is about. The Judeo-Christian interpretation has you believing that it's the red horse of war, all the nations, World War II. And it's not true. It's not true. There is no all nations fighting. There is no world war in 2024. None of that's true. There may be some skirmishes. There may be some battles. 3 or 4 nations may attack another nation. That's not a world war. So what it is, though, is it's very specific. It says, in the second horseman is there to take peace from the earth. That's terrorism. That's what takes peace. If your community is all wild, and this is the same thing, the second horseman will have the same effects as the first horseman. What did the first horseman have? It doesn't matter if it was Apollo Pharmakeia attacking the human family by using a needle. It doesn't matter. The second horseman is equally doing the same thing, causing restrictions on travel, causing divisions among humans who are making them take sides, and locking down populations for security measures. It's the same thing, 2024. It's going to be the unfolding of the second seal, and this is Islamic attacks against Western nations in retaliation for whatever's going on in Palestine. Let's see. David Weiss, a name I'm very familiar with. Is that Weiss or Weiss? Jason, you said in a video that the histories revealed in older books may not have even truly happened, even though the chronology is correct. Can you elaborate on this? I feel fairly conversant on the topics you talk about, but this one is hard to wrap my head around. I assume newbies will have the same reaction to information like this. Okay, that we live in a mathematical construct means that the arithmetic is paramount, and that the actual architecture of whatever this arithmetic is paramount and the most important thing to be analyzed. It's not the individual events in history that provided that arithmetic. If we have seen that much of history has been falsified, and yet we get the exact date, and we know that date is right because of cross-calendrical parallels, which I've showed many examples of. And not just cross-calendrical parallels, but even isometric projections, these total admissions by the construct that the palindromic nature of the calendar is real. These equidistant points that don't make sense. Nature doesn't work that way, and yet we find them everywhere. So this necessarily implies the construct is what's real. The phenomena that's happening inside of it may not be. Much of the things that we think actually happened in history may just be phantasms. They may be introductions of the construct because it needed to put something at a certain nexus point or calendrical node to draw attention to it. But the actual event may not be real. The only thing really real here are the immortals that are passing through this construct. The construct is real as well. It's a fixed medium. Remember, we live in two different realities at the exact same time. One of them is fixed. It is fixed. This is the fixed one is the one that we all agree about. The fixed one, we know that fire is hot. We know that we can't fly. We know that I could jump off a cliff and I'm gonna fall down. There are things that are axiomatic. These are self-evident truths that we all agree on. There's no argument there. There is no argument that if I pull out a knife and I hit myself, I'm gonna be in pain. I'm gonna be in pain, and I'm gonna do damage to my avatar. We agree about these things, and there's many other things that we agree on. But then there are other things in our reality that we do not agree on, but it doesn't mean you're right and I'm wrong. Because we can agree on the timing of those events, even though we don't agree on what that event actually was, or what the outcome really was. So that's my only point. My only point is history is instructive, but I don't think history is constructive. I don't think it really matters. I don't, because calendars confine us. I think remember, living in two different realities at the same time means that this over construct that we all agree to, the collective is passing through with us, is very different than the highly individualized soul that makes their own way. From that perspective, nothing matters. I don't care about the Phoenix phenomenon because fear makes me a participant. I don't care about if different events happened in history and that means that this has got to happen right here. I don't care because fear makes me a participant. My own highly individualized reality is mine, and nothing else matters outside of that but me and my relationship to the oversoul. If I was to really, truly buy into all the phenomena of the past as being real, that would only promote fear. So I try to remain as objective as possible. And that objectivity also allows me to see with better clarity because I'm not weighed down by these circumstances of fear and what the imagination will do with that fear. Conjure all kinds of situations that put me in the Phoenix phenomenon, that put me here when the Nemesis X object appears, that put me here in 2052 when the prison called the Dark Satellite is broken open and Apollyon is released, and then basically all of Ragnarok and the tribulation unfolds. I don't want to experience all that. I don't even want to think about it. So no, I don't believe we can many events in the collective are fixed. But there's a whole bunch of them that are not. They're amorphous. And we have evidence of this with retrocausality. We know by virtue of imagination, we are able to experience the past. And we know by virtue of imagination, we can even alter events in the past, which create the reciprocal event in the present. We know this because we can do it to heal ourselves. We can do it to gain a better understanding. We are time travelers, but that time traveling doesn't involve the avatar. It involves the imagination. Remember, spiritual beings, intuition, empathy, and imagination. These are the three traits, but you don't have to exhibit all of them all the time. Imagination is highly spiritual. And with imagination, you can explore the construct. You can go forward and backward in time, and you can see how amorphous it is. It takes on structure the more we measure it, the more we analyze it, just like the perimeters of our reality right now. No one really knows. People argue that we're on a globe 93 million miles away from the sun. Other people argue that we're in a closed system. Other people argue that it's a flat Earth it's an infinity. It's just a field that just goes on and on and on. There's other continents and other worlds, and sooner or later, I guess they develop the idea that there's other domes or just one big dome. I don't know, but I believe that the more we theorize about the construct itself will assume those properties and reflect them back as truths to us, so that we basically enter a feedback loop of phenomena being projected from the construct for us to absorb as fact. And it's the same thing with history. It's the same thing. So yeah, that's the beauty of a construct. It's not a real reality. Every bit of this is falsified, but in its falsity, there are Easter eggs. And we keep finding them, and it keeps showing us these beautiful deals. Because when I publish about chronologies and timelines and calendars, that's what it's called from our perspective. But what it really is coding protocols. I'm basically showing you the construct and where it goes and where it leads, when the next reset is, when the next reboot is, when the Exodus event again is, and everybody who's not ready stays in here, and they get cycled right back through it, and they live through multiple life sims, right? Just like you and I have. We've lived through multiple life sims to get to this point where we are now, when we are doubting the very viability of our existence. That's where we're at right now. Therefore, we are a threat to the construct. We are errants. Errant is something that goes their own way. It causes processing power problems. It causes all kinds of energy problems. I mean, the construct itself is subject to the law of conservation of energy. It doesn't have an infinite amount of energy. That's why, or dungeon programming wouldn't be necessary. So, yeah, that's where I can go with that. I don't have all the answers to everything, but that's where I'm at with that question. So David Stevens, is it your last life dungeon that counts towards your oversoul completion? Man, I don't know. I just don't. I really don't know. I mean, this is like a first principle type question. I believe that I've lived multiple life sims. I believe that my avatars have been different races, different time periods, different cultures, different languages. I've lived in different civilizations. I've received all these, and this has built my personality. It's built who I am today. However, in order for this to be a true experience of learning for an immortal soul, each avatar had its own little period where the soul was confined, and basically, it's not a memory wipe. It's a separation. When you're inside the construct and jacked into an avatar by virtue of the central nervous system, there are filters now that prevent you from remembering when you were on a Viking warship, when you were an Etruscan milkmaid, when you were in ancient Babylon serving apples at the door to every man that showed up and asking him if he would like to taste paradise. You don't remember who you are in each avatar, because the avatar belongs to the construct. It's not really you at all, but you're jacked into it. This is a spiritual technology. The central nervous system is highly we can't even replicate one today. And this is a spiritual technology that we're going through, and I am absolutely of the opinion that we volunteered for every bit of this. Nina Cardoso, are there any physical direct sources of information from the Anuna themselves, or was their technology just way too advanced? Okay, concerning imagine you and I with tablets. We got tablets. We got cell phones. We got tablets. And in 2046, there's a 100% total infrastructure collapse. Electricity does not work. Our tablets and all the knowledge on them, in them, stored in them. The tablets were able to access servers that had unlimited data. Every bit of this technology ceases to exist. It's gone. So these tablets, within 30 or 40 years, people talked about when When, wow, man, check this out. Everybody's 20, 30, and 40 years old, 50 years later. And they're all talking about, wow, you remember when our moms and dads used to talk about, we had all these awesome tablets and all that. Well, the next generation, within 100 years, people are now using a stylus and clay tablets to record data. This is by the year 2060. By the year 2060 and 2065, people are using clay prisms, big old clay pillar, and they start writing on them. And they use a board to flatten the area out to write more on it. Use a board to flatten this area out to write on it. Now we got a Sumerian prism. It's got data all around it. It's because people are using a stylus and they've come up with a way for writing. But it's all modeled after a prior civilization that used tablets to record things, to move machinery, to do all kinds of things. But the generations afterward used clay tablets in mimicry of that. In the future, 2025, 2026. Now take 2047, 2048, 2060. Now take the year 2070 after a signature event occurs. Take the year 2070 and then wrap it around to the year 3439 BC. And in the year 3439 BC, some technologically advanced people come up from the underworld, where Americans, Amuru, whatever, they come up from the underworld where they were hiding from the Phoenix and the Nemesis X object in the dark satellite, and now they come up. When they come up, it's in our future, as I'm talking to you with Jason of Archaix, answering a question on YouTube. It's in our present right now. We're in 2023, but in our future in 2070, this event happens. But in the construct, it's describing 3439 BC. Americans come up out of these underground facilities, DEBs, deep earth biospheres. They come up, they've got their technology intact, they got all these things, and it's the story of Enki and the Anuna appearing in the world all over again. It's the exact same story. On my channel, I have showed in much proofs and evidence undermining the whole ancient aliens narrative. They didn't come from the sky. They came out of a mountain stronghold. That's where the Watchers came from. They came from Mount Ardon. This is where the Anuna came from. They came from the underworld. We're on a loop. And the very things that we assume are going to happen in the near future have already happened in the ancient past. And we were there. And then we lived through it. And then that infrastructure collapses because when the Anuna appear, they come with their tablets. They come with their tablets before the flood, during the vapor canopy period, which was a apocalypse, post-apocalyptic period that left a vapor canopy, which is what we're facing in the very near future. But this happened in the ancient past. The exact same story. Here it is. They come up, they have infrastructure, they teach us how to do canals, they teach us herbs, they even teach, in the book of Jasher, they teach spermicides, they teach how to make weapons, they show all this stuff, and we are fascinated with them. We, as Sumerians, are fascinated with the Anuna, Americans, because they've got tablets. And these tablets can do everything, and they move things in the sky in heavy weights, and the gods, the Anuna, which are humans, are sitting there talking to each other with these tablets from great distances. We can't even see who we're talking to. Oh, he's on that ship way out there. Yeah, okay, cool. And we watch it. It's fascinating to us. And these little things are protected in bags that they all carry. That bag is weather protection. They must have that protection because these are the last of their technologies. And they're using portable servers on these vast pieces of machinery and ships. This is what's going on in the ancient past, but it's in our future from 2023. What I'm describing is going to happen in the future. But what I'm describing is already in the historical record as our past. We're on a loop. So, hope that answers your question. I'll go into a lot more detail in my Anuna Files videos and podcasts. Nigel Payne. What are your thoughts on if we lift our vibration and live in harmony and love, and would it stop the world from the Phoenix reset? No. You can always change your world, but you can't change the world. You're in a construct. You're an immortal being passing through a construct. Any community can come together and refuse to participate. If the energy is there, if the spiritual energy is there and people just absolutely refuse to communicate in their community to contribute, to be a part of whatever the collective is suffering, if they refuse to do that, I promise you the construct will provide a way of deliverance. You can never dictate to the construct's builder protocols how that's to come to pass. You must, by virtue of imagination, imagine a 100% protected, happy community. And then the community itself, in their individual avatars, need to start doing something in the physical world that reflects the belief that they are immune to what's going on around them. And the construct will create that immunity. So, yeah, you can't change the world. There aren't enough of us to come together to alter the trajectory of the construct. It's not going to happen. We are on a programmed loop in the collective. Now, individually, you can do whatever you want to do. Yeah, this is a beautiful construct. Once you understand the concept that we live in two different coexisting realities at the exact same time, and that you can phase between in and out, you can live in the collective most of the time like everybody else, and then phase out and do great and incredible things, and then phase back in it. Once you understand that you have this duality, you have this power, there's nothing you can't do. I've done miraculous things since I've been out of prison 7 years ago. I've done miraculous things. And I've also lived in the collective quite a bit of that time too, working my ass off in oil and gas, in the pipe yards, stone work. I've been doing a lot of that as I slowly built my channel. So yeah, it's you can do both. That was Nigel Payne. Maxwell Powers. How soon after May 15th, 2040 will the vapor canopy start? How long will it last? How intense will it be? What parts of Earth will cover it? What is reverse aging? That's a lot. Okay, first of all, May 16th or May 17th is where I'm pretty much targeting the Phoenix phenomenon based upon where you are in the world. I believe May 17th is also the 138th day of the year, I believe, except for leap years. Or May 18th, one of them. Anyway, a vapor canopy cannot affect just one area of our world. It is the whole world or none at all. But a vapor canopy can appear very fast. One single volcano in 1883 created a cloud and ash veil all the way around the world. Imagine 20 volcanoes on land spewing ash and pumice into the mesosphere. Imagine another 10 to 20 volcanoes erupting underneath the saltwater oceans. The amount of steam that will fill the mesosphere with the ash and pumice is enough to bring a vapor canopy in weeks. And then the sun won't be seen for years. And then the greenhouse gases will build, the oxygen content will increase, ambient radiation from the intense volcanism will create humans and changes in the human genome. And I believe this answers to all these anomalies that we find in eschatology, in the writings of First and Second Esdras, the prophecies about what humans will go through in the last days. It also answers for some of the trumpet judgments and why the earth is the way it is. I believe the vapor canopy is coming back very rapidly. In addition to that, today animals are in no way a threat to us. They just aren't. We have all the measures in place for a wild dog. A lion gets loose. We have all that. So in the collective, humans, there's no threat from the animal kingdoms. But right after the Phoenix phenomenon, animals become a problem. Animals actually afflict a fourth part of the world. What that means, I don't know. But during a vapor canopy, it doesn't even take a year before animals have developed into, insects, reptiles, and amphibians will grow to astonishing sizes and rapidly. And with the growth to larger sizes, but for uh, avians, and reptiles and amphibians, this also includes those in the water. It also necessitates an increase of appetite. I don't know what changes will come to marsupials and mammals, but if the archaeological record is true, the megafauna suddenly appeared. There was no gradual development. Their sudden appearance was also marked in the historical record with their rapid vanishing, their disappearance. So yeah, this uniformitarian model of things slowly developing is untrue. All the greatest changes that ever happened to our world happened almost instantly. So yeah, I'm not on board with uniformitarianism. Yeah, you can imagine the ambient radiation. In 1902, two scientists grew 2 inches. One was 58 years old and one I think was 62. Both of these men grew 2 inches just in the couple of months they were studying Mount Pelee, which exploded, a volcanic explosion that killed 40,000 people at St. Martinique. So if ambient radiation can cause people to grow that fast, humans, imagine what we'll do to insects, reptiles, amphibians, and avians. So, getting through these questions, but I don't know if I'm covering them all. Hour and 48 minutes. So, think about it. I say insects. Insects is a very general term, but you got to think termites. Imagine a 4-inch long termite. Then imagine a termite mound. Imagine ants. Ants being, imagine 6-inch long ants. Yeah, it's just crazy. Spiders. Oh yeah, I know. Some people don't want to hear that one. Imagine arachnids growing huge. Yeah. Imagine the power of a spider web from a spider the size of a basketball or beach ball. All right. Everybody saying keep going? This is a beginner's video, so I don't want to cut them short. All right. Yeah, centipedes, millipedes. Oh, shit. Hornets and wasps. 9 inches long. Man. Kirsten Fisher. Could all the crazy politics going on be a placebo for the collective outcome? I don't believe in politics at all. I am completely gone from that. When I first started my channel, I was leaning toward Trump and I was leaning toward conservatism. I have now completely pulled away from all that. I recognize it for what it is. After watching David Nino's channel, I've been a guest on his show twice. After I've been exposed to more of his guests, and I'm listening to that, man. Now that I know that Trump's family is married into the Kushner, and that Ivanka has converted, and now that I see perfectly clear how this Trump narrative was so genius. It was so genius. These people have been doing this for such a long time, pulling the wool over our eyes. It's sickening. I want nothing to do with the politics. The entire political arena is infected. Every single politician has signed the contract. If you're still living in a world where you think there are good guys in the collective, you're always going to be subject to that deceit. Yeah. There are no good guys anymore. All that's over with. We live in a world that is the elite. We live in a world of elitists that is so tightly controlled that if you're a public figure on that level, you've already signed the contract. You're a part of the problem. Yeah, I'm not going to be a participant. I'm not trying to hear it. Havard Hagen. Who are the peoples who remember the time before the moon, 4309 BC? It's actually 4039 BC, but that might be a typo. Since that was before Homo sapiens sapiens, human race, which started in 4039 BC. I see that's I don't know if that was before. I mean, humans can go all the way back in this construct to 5239 BC. That's where I start the Archaix chronology. The Anunnaki calendar starts 5239 BC every 600 years. So I don't know. I don't know. I kind of want to believe the Mayan Popol Vuh, which shows that the gods introduced different stages of humanity rapidly, ending each one with a catastrophe. So that's why we have such diversity of avatars, different races. But I don't know, man. Nobody really knows the answer to this question, who these people were. They were just, I believe they were goddess worshippers, matriarchal societies. But the pre-Selenites, this isn't something, you got to understand, when it comes to the historical record, Archaix really doesn't bring anything new to the table. All I'm doing is bringing all this old stuff back to the public mindset. It's not that I'm inventing anything. I'm bringing all these old concepts and all these old histories and chronologies back to modern times. And when it comes to the pre-Selenites, this is something that Hans Horberger wrote about in the 1800s and Hans Bellamy in the early 20th century. This is something that Immanuel Velikovsky wrote about. So, yeah, I don't know much about them. I just know that they wrote and cited ancient legends and traditions about the pre-Selenites, actual people who boasted that their civilization was thriving before the moon ever appeared in the sky. All right, Matthew Rogan. What did Matthew Rogan ask? Okay, in a vapor canopy environment, Jason stated that the people didn't know the sun. Wouldn't they still see it in the morning as the mist from the night would evaporate back up into the mesosphere? Well, your flat earthers are going to say that's a matter of perspective. I showed pictures on YouTube, and I got a lot of flack from it from flat earthers when I showed the reflection of sunlight off the bottom of clouds. They tell me that that's not sunlight reflecting straight from the deal. They're saying that it's reflected off bodies of water in the land further down. And I just don't. It doesn't make sense to me, and I don't even care. I don't even care about flat Earth. I don't care about concave Earth. I don't care about anybody attempting to try to put a model on an amorphous concept, on an amorphous. We live in a realm, and that realm takes on the perimeters of whatever we believe it to be. That's what it does. It's a construct. So I don't care. These arguments, they mean nothing to me. It's like a waste. I could spend the rest of my life studying flat Earth arguments and stuff, and then finally agree to them. But in the end, it's still an amorphous construct. It is still the only thing real. It's all a mathematical construct. There's no way I'm gonna spend that much time trying. It's ridiculous. I just can't do it. It's a total waste of basically intellectual energy. It's but yeah, you're asking me about I don't know how to answer this question because it implies so much. Are you asking me that when the sun rises in the morning, people would see the sun before? No, because in that area of the world, the misting would have already happened. Before the sun could ever be visible, that area of the world already misted over. So yeah, it's the same thing. And then as the sun rises, the whole sky changes from clear crystal. You got to understand, this isn't me inventing a model. This is what the ancients described. They described it perfectly, that the stars were so close they could touch them, they could hear them singing, and the moon filled the whole sky. We don't have that today. And they also say that the sun was never there at all. So in 2239 BC is when all the sun calendars began, all the ancient American calendars. You have to understand, it's also when the vapor canopy collapsed, it wasn't just the day the sky fell. We have records of two major civilizations existing at the time that introduced into their old pantheons a whole new god at the end of a period of time when their pantheon had been fully developed. That would have never happened had not that event truly occurred. And what I mean is in 2239 BC, two civilizations introduced sun gods. All of a sudden, the Egyptian Aeneid of 9 gods was already established by 2239 BC, but all of a sudden, they introduced Horus, the birth of the sun. The Sumerians did the same thing. After a long period of time of already having the Sumerian god, the triad, the Sumerian gods and goddesses, all of a sudden, at the end of Sumer, this is the end, guys, not the beginning, at the end of Sumerian civilization, what did they do? They introduced Utu Shamash, the sun. It's because they never had a record of the sun prior to that time. So yeah, it's a... So, Luke Donovan, I have a few questions. Where are we at? 1 hour and 58 minutes? Okay. Okay. Do you think our avatars can alter the default reality's trajectory through certain actions and imaginative thought? That's the whole subject of my channel. Well, it's one of the subjects of my channel. Yeah, I've already addressed this earlier in this video. Yeah, 100%. You're living in two different realities. One of them is the collective. You phase in and out. In those highly spiritual moments when you can alter your reality is when you need to begin moving your avatar in the direction that you want. I've already talked about this. Yes, you can change your reality, and you can do it fast too. We Immortals playlist and my podcast playlist go into a lot of detail. I have a whole different playlist called live videos. Some of those go into real good detail too. Let's see. Do you feel our true selves reside outside of the construct in a reality, say, akin to heaven, perfection, no violence, no poverty? Or is it possible we are experiencing the surface reality while residing underground amongst technologically advanced civilizations that are drip feeding the surface inhabitants with whatever the collective? I don't believe in that model. I don't believe the oversoul would have ever allowed for a situation like what you just described, the Matrix, where humans are being used as a battery. This is fear programming. This is why I disagree with so many other truthers out there talking about the soul trap and all these things that are basically recent inventions, recent introductions into the field within the last 20, 30, or 40 years, and they have absolutely no antecedents. This is all new invented fears. I don't believe the oversoul would have ever abandoned us like that. I believe that we are immortal beings, and outside the construct, we really don't have avatars like this. These avatars belong to the construct. We have something else. And I also believe that the experience that we're experiencing right now, which is completely falsified and artificial, but is made to feel real to us, is something we've done before multiple times in the past, and we have multiple more of these simulacrum experiences to do in the future as well. This is how immortals can experience things and not suffer the consequences of bad mistakes, not suffer the consequences of accidents and all that. Everything is kept inside the controlled environment of the field, and there is no cross-contamination with the real reality. So that's my best answer for that. Joan Kelly. Who are the actual controllers? Why were these simulations made? Thank you for all the information you share so freely with us. Not really a beginner's question. I mean, but yeah, I've covered this multiple times too. Simulation. We're immortal beings passing through experiences. This is answered like so many hundreds of times in so many different ways across my channel. It's the actual controllers. I don't believe the elite are the controllers at all. The control mechanisms are almost like computerized. They're protocols. Phoenix is a protocol. Nemesis X is a protocol. We have dungeon protocols. You have builder protocols. We've got benefactor protocols. All these systems and subsystems that are operating throughout the holography, they all have their functions. That doesn't really mean that they're actual personalities, not like we are. So I believe it was made to be so real, and it was made to be basically injected with so many threats and possibilities of danger and pain and all that to make it more real. So, yeah. Marianne Comfort, I can't really read it. Hi, Jason. I have heard a couple of truthers stating that the ancient AI that runs the world, without calling it AIX, has been turned off. So, do you think this is possible? And if so, would it stop the 2040? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where they got that information. They didn't get it from any ancient text. Artificial Intelligence X, Archaix, means advanced research of chronological history of artificial intelligence X. Artificial Intelligence X is inside the construct. It is running the construct. It is the chief negative default protocol of the construct to make it so realistic. I believe that it's developed its own personality to a degree. It plays God. It wants to be perceived as God, and it manifests as the Demiurge, Yaldabaoth, Yahweh. It is the antagonistic God, pretending to be God all throughout the historical record. It is manifested in all these religious texts. But to say that the ancient AI has been turned off, I don't know where they would get that information, how they would even postulate such a thing, and I don't even know where that's going. I have no idea. I mean, anybody can say anything. The reason I call it AIX is because X is unknown factor. I am admitting that I know nothing about it other than how it's manifested throughout history, what it does. Other than that, I really don't know much about it. Is it a fallen god? I don't know. I just don't. I don't know what it is. That's why I call it AIX. But I'm absolutely convinced it's the only AI running the show. And this is why we have little instances in the religious records, like concerning our God is a jealous God. Yeah, there's no way it will ever allow for a system to be implemented inside it that could actually overturn it, could take it over or threaten it. This is why I don't believe that we will ever develop AI inside this construct. And I say this on my channel a lot. And the leading experts in deep learning and machine learning agree. They have published their findings that we are still eons away from the development of true artificial intelligence. Right now, AI is a misnomer. It is just an increase in processing power. That's all it is. AI doesn't exist. We're nowhere near AI, but they do a really good job of marketing that idea and implanting it into the public mindset. If there's ever an AI takeover, it's not. It's an intelligence agency running an op, a psyop. That's all it is. AI inside the construct doesn't exist because the construct itself is run by an AI, and it will never allow a usurper. It's not going to happen. So, Vicky Davis, what is the beginning, initial creator of this simulation? I understand we have changed it. Vicky, that is a first principle question, and you can't lay that to my charge. You can't ask me that and expect an accurate answer. I mean, it's the same thing as walking into a Roman Catholic church and asking a cardinal, "Hey, man, who's God?" I mean, what gave you the right to build this cathedral here? I mean, uh, who's the creator and why are we here? I mean, these are first principle questions. I do address these on my channel from time to time as I'm going over historical evidence, but in order as a beginner just now entering in archaics and to ask something like that, it's tantamount to just walking up to somebody on the street and saying, "Hey, man, can you prove to me who God is and why we're here?" Yeah, it's the same thing. If you want the answers to something that is so heavy, when you first come into contact with new information, then it's almost a message to me that you're not willing to do the work to learn for yourself, and that you want me to just spit it out. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that at all. Lori Sobovaro, are our pets and other animals NPCs? I believe many animals can be NPCs, but I believe that those animals that we are in the most contact with them, they have souls as well. They're in different stages of development, and I don't know enough about it. It would be presumptuous of me to entertain anything outside of the human experience. I've never been a cat. I've never been a dog that I know of. And yet I'm willing to entertain that the oversoul has plans for the animals as well. And that animals are in a species of development to where maybe they do become humans and avatars and other constructs at a future date. I don't know. This is all supposition. I have no idea. But do I believe that they have the life of the oversoul within them, the divine spark? Yes. The evidence is in their personalities, not their programming. Cats do what cats do. Dogs do what dogs do. We see squirrels certain behaviors, but then there's an added spark that we detect in some animals that show that they are acting beyond the confines of anything that could be denoted as programming. And when we come into contact with those type of experiences, it's basically one spirit acknowledging another. So that's as far as I can go with that. I really don't know. Luca Longcar. Luca Longcar. I'm from Croatia. Really, really bad English. Can't understand anything. Tried a few times. Last chance I give to the Phoenix for the dummies. Oh, Phoenix for dummies. Okay. Again, can't understand, but as I could get the key of the story is event in 2046 Phoenix. That's wrong. But I remembered you said 1902 last reset, and movies were my proof for that cause. The year stay in my mind. I'm sorry, guy. Yeah, you're doing pretty good for someone who's not English, though. So for that event, like people who didn't realize they aren't this avatar will be wiped out of the earth by this mysterious energy. I don't mean exactly people who didn't realize, but no. Listen, one, a lot of my detractors, basically just haters, they try to tell other people, oh man, Jason of Archaix, he's out of his mind, man. Dude's fake as hell. Talking about the world's going to end in 2040. Talking about the world ended in 1902, 1764. The world ended. That is not what I have ever said, ever. Phoenix phenomenon is just that. It's a phenomenon, and many things attached to that. All throughout the historical record on this 138-year timeline, we have found some really unusual things. We have found mass depopulations of hundreds of thousands of people in some years, and that was covered up by a cataclysm. That just doesn't make sense. Then we find edits. We find resets. We find this strange red mud, red rain, and red dust that is deposited all over the world. There are geological deposits found all over the world of this red material. Recently, somebody sent me some from Australia and showed me photos where it's easily seen in 1902. This stuff blanketed this whole area. This dude sent me some geological information. He even sent me some of the red dust in a jar. I showed it on YouTube. Showed me photos of how this heavy white rock was layered in this red dust, all in this whole layer. And it doesn't make sense unless the red rocks were falling from the sky at the same time as the red dust was blanketing the ground. That's the only way that that aggregate, this white rocks would have been deposited like that. Ordinarily, they'd have sunk straight down below the red dust or to the bottom of the red dust layer. They didn't. They were suspended in different depths of the red dust in Australia. So yeah, it's a Phoenix phenomenon is all different kinds of things. It's a mystery, but I believe it's a protocol. It's an editing. Men and materials are changed. They vanish. New ones are introduced. All kinds of strange things happens on this 138-year Also, the trajectory of history is modified every 138 years. Follow how 1902 started so many things. Follow how 1764 changed the direction of governments all throughout the world. How all the monarchies just lost power all of a sudden, and republics and democracies took over. Go to 1626 and you can see huge changes in the demographics of the world. Now there's a massive population shift starting in 1626 where people from Europe suddenly just start flooding North America. Yeah. Every 138 years, it's also the trajectory of events suddenly changes in a new direction, and that's the way everything goes for 138 years. It's crazy. Joel Slover. I'm trying to understand the relationship between quantum physics, altered states of consciousness, and how they might relate to interdimensional exploration. Any suggestions? That's not a question for somebody new coming into Archaix. That's all. It's just not. One, I would have to agree that all these are relative and that there is a relationship that bridges all three of these concepts. I'm not ready to do that right now. Yeah. Quantum physics is still an attempt to understand the non-locality of time space, non-locality of events within measured time space. It's quantum physics, quantum mechanics. They don't have all the answers. Comes real close, goes far beyond Einstein, but I mean, quantum physics isn't even older than Einstein's suppositions. I'm not on board with Einstein either. So altered states of consciousness, you're talking to the wrong guy. I don't do anything that alters my ability to think. I don't do mushrooms, entheogens. I don't do acid. I don't do drugs. I don't do anything, any type of meditations. I don't do anything that will alter my cognition. So I don't know. And how they might relate to interdimensional exploration. I don't believe that you're allowed to leave this construct. I don't. I get frustrated with all the people that claim to have OBEs and NDEs, and they claim that they went to other worlds and other constructs. I don't believe any of that. I don't believe any of them. I believe that by virtue of the central nervous system's attempts to keep them moored to the construct when they have actually become unhinged, and they actually saw things for what they are inside the construct, as the brain is struggling for frames of reference. That's why a lot of people see, it's really very weird. People in India who have NDEs see Shiva. They see merits. They see Brahma. They see all kinds of things that their brain is struggling to understand. So it attaches significance that is cultural. Pieces of their programming are now manifested in their altered state. But a Christian who has an NDE sees the Apostle Paul, Jesus, heaven, all these things that are by virtue of frames of reference a part of that person's programming. A Catholic sees Mother Mary. Yeah, man, I'm not believing any of that at all. I don't believe, just like an NDE isn't death. That's why it's called a near-death experience. I've lost subs behind this. I've lost a lot of people because they want to believe in all that. It's fine. And there's whole YouTube channels devoted to telling all these people's stories. And the stories to a limited degree all sound the same, because it's frames of reference. And then you got some real ingenious people. Well, they're not ingenious. They just think they are. That come up with these OBE deals, and they spin these fantastic yarns about going below the ocean and seeing Atlantis. And there's a pyramid under Atlantis. And yeah, you got people just making up stuff on the fly, and other people believing them, unable to even listen to an individual and realize you're being lied to. Yeah, I just can't. You're asking the wrong guy all this. Tim Holland. What impact is expected if one lives in the Philippines in May 2040? Well, you're going to be at a whole new location. You're going to move 30 degrees north. So wherever the Philippines is, you can look on a map and look about 30 degrees north, and from the Philippines, you might look about 5 to 10 degrees east, and that's where your location is going to be. So, no, excuse me, west, 5 5 degrees west, that's where your location is going to be. That's where the Philippines is going to be. Now, will it fare well? I don't know. I don't know what the elevation is in the Philippines. It's a bunch of islands, right? Nowhere around water is good. So, yeah, I don't know. 16 and a half years to figure that out. Denise Dorion Terrace. Denise Dorion Terrace. Why does the Phoenix target civilization on the surface of our fake world and not the elites that are bunkered and hiding down below us? Well, below us is fake too. I mean, if the surface is fake, so is the underworld fake. I mean, we before you start calling all reality and everything fake, you have to understand just because it's simulated, just because it's a construct, a mathematical construct that by virtue of the central nervous system has us believing that it's all real when it's not, doesn't necessarily mean it's fake. So, yeah, whatever you, if the surface of the world is fake, then so are the bunkers. The elite's fake. So are the bunkers of the elite underground is fake. Why do they get to live and some of us perish? So, yeah, I've gone into this a lot too in my Phoenix, on my Phoenix playlist, my Phoenix presentations. I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you I know this and I know that. I don't. All I can do is give you all the data that I got. The conclusions that I have from the data is that the elite hide from the Phoenix because they know about it. And maybe there's a certain depth underground that the Phoenix can't penetrate. And that's why they go down there. But I don't know why. Maybe the Phoenix phenomenon isn't even targeting the elite. That's just supposition. That's just theory. Maybe the Phoenix phenomenon is doing whatever it was designed to do as a protocol, and it just so happens that a certain group of people in ancient times documented enough, knew enough about it. Maybe they knew it was from an ancient technological artifact from a prior civil sim that continued to exist, and they can't figure out how to control it. They tried to control it. They tried to hijack it. They tried to introduce a Trojan program by using the Great Pyramid. I don't know. This is still all supposition, but the facts are there. You can make up your own mind, but you need to process that data. And you can't do that by asking me a simple question and getting a simple answer. It's not going to happen. You need to see the massive amount of data about the Great Pyramid of Egypt and about the Phoenix phenomenon and develop a theory for yourself as to why all this is going on. My interpretation of the data is that a certain group of people know about the Phoenix phenomenon, and they know that at a certain depth they're able to survive it most of the time. And they also know that the Phoenix phenomenon doesn't wipe the world, it doesn't reset the world, it doesn't wipe out humanity, but it's unpredictable as to what it decides to reset and what it decides to totally bury under red mud, what it decides to do. It's discretionary. And maybe those who know a lot about the Phoenix, like the elite, who are always hiding the evidence of that knowledge in their art and architecture, maybe they know more than we figured out. Maybe there's a missing element, a missing component here. Or maybe they haven't, and they learn from us. I don't know. And there was a lot of questions dealt to Dawn. I'm not going to get to all this. Ray Rodriguez, does Jason pray? I'm going to tell you what I tell my community all the time. I believe that my activity in the construct is accepted as prayer to the oversoul because a mouth can say anything. Over and over, I've told my community that the prayer of desperation admits a situation for what it is and thus continues it. I've had arguments with my former Christian brothers and sisters that totally disagree with me, but they're disagreeing with me because they've been programmed to believe that prayer is an answer for everything. And I know this for a fact. Right now, the pharmaceutical companies are killing hundreds of millions of people every decade, and they're doing it with cancer. when this could have been dealt with a long time ago. But I also know hundreds of millions of people are praying to God for a cure for cancer, and it hasn't happened. Is there a cure for cancer? Probably. There's probably been several cures for cancer. Is it being used to save lives in the hundreds of millions? Nope. Pharmaceutical companies, the temples of Apollo, are always sacrificing the human family. But those who don't pray to Apollo, those who pray to God in whatever form they think God to be, they're still dying of cancer. They're still dying of all these things. That's just one argument I have. I know I get a lot of people triggered about that prayer question, and they always tell me, oh, I pray and this happens, I pray and that happens. You know what? If your prayers were being answered to your satisfaction, you wouldn't still be searching for answers. So I'm not on board. I'm so, to me, religionists are so toxic. I came out of that. The first 40 years of my life as Southern Baptist Christian, I used to pray, I used to fast, I used to do all that. And now I realize what I was doing, it was terrible. No, my individual acts toward others are my worship to God. That's it. And you got to remember, the prayer of desperation admits a situation for what it is and thus continues it. Why? Because when an immortal being admits that something is a certain way, the construct will always reciprocate and make sure that that certain way is still perpetuated. It doesn't matter if you want it to stop. You admitted that it still exists. Therefore, you have basically wrote in perpetuity programming. You have to understand we are divine creators. We build our individual and collective existences. We do this inside a fixed medium that is moving in a certain direction. We're all flowing with it. But we have great power within that area and within our own sphere to write our own destiny. But when you make admissions that you are unable to do or effect something and you need something outside of yourself, you are telling the construct that you are no longer a part of the divine oversoul, and you no longer have that spiritual integrity by which you can accomplish these things yourself. Therefore, you admit that the situation exists, and the construct continues it. Yeah. Religiosity is the greatest poison that has ever been introduced into the construct. All right. Too many questions, guys. Way too many questions on this page. Too many. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and close with that. That's a good way to close. I'm already at I'm approaching 2 hours and 30 minutes. I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. It's some of those weren't kind of new questions, but you know what? It's okay. It's okay. It's given some of the newer people something to cogitate on, something to think about. So, like I said, I'm gonna close out. Don't forget, though I know a bunch of y'all are in our Archaix TV. Please don't forget, you got two new recent hats off videos were put in there. So, and let me see, truth or nothing. Yeah, guys, it's I appreciate you spending this time with me. We got some interesting videos coming up, I promise you, because you guys know there's no stopping me. There's no backup. And I told you 2024 is going to get interesting. It's going to get real interesting because I don't plan to stop what I'm doing in my education of those who are willing to listen. I'm not going to stop that, but I promise you I'm going to hurt some feelings in 2024. I'm going to reach out and touch some of those guys who think they're untouchable. And I just like I said, there's no backup on me. I'm gonna be a freight train in 2024, guys, and they've been warned. I'm gonna find my epic outro. One of these days, I'm gonna be able to get this down right.